Board or the audience like to offer up a prayer? I guess we'll do the Lord's Prayer then. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who have trespassed against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Pledge to the United States flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you, Ms. Casto. Can you do the roll call, please?
President Jeremiah,
Present.
Vice President Kathy Guy,
Present.
Secretary Treasurer Mariella Aguilar, Director Glenn Mayberry,
Present.
Director Quotation Dunn, Director Suzette Banks,
Present.
Director Amanda Newendorf.
Present.
You have a quorum, sir.
Thank you. Agenda item 3, public comments. And I don't believe, Ms. Casto, did we have any? Okay. No public comments. We're going to move on to agenda item 4. Agenda item 4 is the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Okay. Motion by Ms. Suzette Baines. Do I have a second?
I second.
And we'll pull Mr. Mayberry. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it passes. Agenda item number 5, discussion possible action regarding hosting quarterly business retention and expansion events. And the funds will be from budget line item number 4000-512, which is our advertisement and promotion budget line item. I'm going to ask Mr. Barnes to speak a little bit on this as well. But in your packet board, there is a breakdown of the previous business retention and expansion event that's held every December for the last, so many years. According to this list of the attendees, out of the 233 people, 17 were actually businesses from the city of Brookshire and around, making up 45 of the 233 attendees, which means there was a fairly large gap of other attendees who were present. My stance is I think we'd be better served looking at going a more frequent route and smaller events. And so what I would like to propose is looking at doing a quarterly event. We've already reached out to a few of our local vendors, such as the Cotton Gin, Andy Reed's place, which is G-Tech. There's a few other places that would be interested in hosting us as well. Mr. Barnes and I kind of talked about this briefly, and I'll let you kind of give your opinion on it in historicals and other EDCs you've been in.
Mr. President, thank you very much. I wasn't fully prepared to speak about the history. Let me offer the following. In our conversation, I would fully endorse having more frequent quarterly of these events, probably of less magnitude and of less expense. I'm not disparaging those events that happened previously. The protocol was a major event with an outside speaker, almost gala-esque, if you will, type facility setting. In a number of our client communities, we do more of the quarterlies. I think that helps you as an EDC board with your internal marketing. You'll hear me talk about internal, external marketing. Internal marketing for you folks to be seen as an integral part of the business community. This will give you 4 opportunities to do that each year. And I don't know what
Yeah, just under $30,000.
Yeah, nearly $30,000 that was spent previously. I have wholeheartedly support this and welcome the opportunity to be part of it.
Absolutely. In further part of our discussions, we feel somewhere around the $10,000, $12,000 mark should be
Per-
enough, no, total,
Total
for the entire year.
I was gonna say, if we take the 27,000 divided by 4, that's 6,800 per event, which
Yeah.
is ample.
Well, I think that's stretching it.
No, that's
I
what I
think
mean.
that's stretching it pretty tight there. We're looking at a more quaint audience.
Yeah, we don't need,
Quaint could be 100 people, right? But a more engaged structure of that event as well versus the gala-esque, I like that word, nature of the previous event.
Grabbed it as it jumped out.
And again, that's not a critique on the purpose of the previous event, other than if we're gonna be serious about business retention and expansion, we need to be in front of all these businesses more frequent. And that's one way to do it. Any questions and comments? Okay,
do we think that this is gonna eventually lead to a potential formation of our own, what is the word I'm looking for? Chamber of Commerce here within Brookshire? Are we gonna continue to remain a part of the KDI 10 for at least the time?
I don't know how that will affect this at all.
No, not to say that it would affect it, I guess I just, if we have these quarterly events and we have, purely local, businesses that are coming out to these events, and we can kind of get a reading on how many are here.
Yeah, I
Just
mean,
curious if that would eventually,
my stance would want to be, we would want to invite current businesses, small, medium, large, as well as prospective businesses that have been kind of shopping the area, that would be open to some of their anonymity released by coming to such an event if they would so choose. I can't speak to that because I think that enters a whole different realm, and I don't know if that's our charge, is to be in the Chamber of Commerce space.
Just one thing, Board, I mean, why this would be different, a different type of expenditure than others is because by statute, you're allowed to do up to 10% of what the statute says. It's your corporate revenues, not more than 10% can be spent for promotional purposes. This would be a promotional purpose.
Right.
So you do have a cap to do this, and why this is not a quote-unquote project, like it has to go through all the other type of processes, because it's a promotional type expense. And so, but, Ms. Neuendorf, to answer your question, I've seen some other EDCs have that same issue about kind of taking the role of the Chamber of Commerce. You can theoretically do that as an EDC board, but it'd be a project type thing. So whatever leads come out of these kind of things that, if you find that there's some need in the community that you can meet by offering services that Chamber of Commerce would offer, then you could create a project, an EDC your size can create a project and make that happen. So there's ways to make that.
I think
instead of-
maybe in my mind, I'm forecasting, just because if we do these more frequently and we start, like, to what you're saying, we start to become more aware of what the needs are within the community, then maybe that could be on our mindset, 5 years down the line, something like that, as our community grows and our businesses grow.
So that's how, you just think, that because of the size of your EDC, which is a small, under 20,000, if you have a city under 20,000 population, then a project you can do, there's one, it's just jump drawer, you can do anything you want to with it, essentially. And so if you start seeing something that could come out of these promotional events, then that would lead to a project that we would address here and then go through the process to do that.
Okay,
May I? Just
absolutely.
a quick comment. Historically, our firm has engaged in one-on-one business retention calls. I think, help me, Vicki, we've probably cataloged at least 25 to 40 where we've gone in, sat down with the businesses, and, we use a kind of a standard form that we use throughout our client population. And it's just another one of those, it's a way to find out if they're expanding.
Right.
Find out if they have vendors, that might be good prospects.
Mhm.
Find out if there are issues. Some of those issues could be what you think would be as cavalier as a pothole in front of their entrance if you're bringing trucks in every day, if that's an issue, obviously. Or sometimes you hear glowing remarks, but the best thing you hear addition to the gala-esque, if you will, function, we've actually done, an ongoing VR program.
Okay. All right, with that, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Ms. Baines, second.
Second?
Second by Ms. Neuendorf. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving on to agenda item 6. Conduct a public hearing, have discussion and possible action regarding approval of the purchase of a backup generator for the Convention Center / City Hall as a project of the BEDC under Chapter 505 of the Texas Local Government Code, coming from budget line item number 4000-617, Facilities / Infrastructure Project. It is now, 6:42?
5:47.
5:42, man, 5:42 PM. We open the floor for public hearing.
No, not today.
Give it the 60-second clock and then we'll shut it down. Hearing none at 5:43 PM, we'll close the public hearing. Agenda item number 7, discussion of possible action regarding the purchase, Agenda item number 6, discussion related to the purchase of this generator for the City Hall / Convention Center. In your packet, you have the proposal by Generac, generators by Wired. If you see in the highlighted blue area, you'll see the 2 areas that I'm proposing that the EDC approve. The remaining items are going to City Council, and that's for a couple of reasons. Namely, and I'll let Mr. Pruitt kind of speak to this, due to the nature of this project, we have to have a 60-day protest period where the public's able to basically write in smoke signals, whatever they choose, to say, we think this is a poor use or a good use of city funds. So there's gonna be a 60-day window before we can even enter into a contract for this. Meanwhile, right now, any of these companies are anywhere from 6 months to a year out in being able to produce these generators due to supply chain issues. So the reason I've highlighted just the blue areas and asking this body to entertain that, separately in later meeting, I'm asking the City Council to entertain the electrical components and go ahead and pass those so that we can be able to hook up to the county's temporary generator they could put on site should we have a natural disaster and have a need to open up the facilities at that time. That would allow us to go ahead and get that electrical work done and the city shoulder a portion of that expense to do so. So I'll turn it over to you,
Yeah, so,
Mr. Pruitt.
I mean, so to call back to that, the previous item, number 5, what makes that item different than this one is the definition of a project. And so there's some, in the statute, there's certain things that you can approve without defining them as a project, and you're allowed to do as expenses like this, like that, the promotional expenses, and you'll see later, like the, just kind of equipment you need to run the meeting, that's like the next item. But for anything else, most anything else, what the statute calls expenditure is a project, so you have to create a project. So for something like this, again, it's called a project, and so the general procedure, I mean, it depends on how you do it. General procedure is you have to have a public hearing for every project, and so you do that. When this agenda's posted, I guess the statute's kind of unclear, but you have to provide notice. And so how that we're gonna do that here is that when you post the agenda and there's a notice on there of the public hearing, that starts what was mentioned, a 60-day window. And in that 60-day window, from the time of posting to whenever that is, to 60 days after, that allows the public to petition the EDC or the council to, reject the proposed project that's been posted. And so, and you're not allowed during that 60-day period, like, even if this were approved unanimously tonight and you have the funds available, you're not allowed to spend cash, you're not to fund that project for 60 days until that time's up. So a lot of what you'll see coming through is gonna be, we'll have several if it projects related to it, we'll do the public hearing to get that timeline started, because you wanna be able to free that time up to make the expenditure or do whatever you want to towards the project. So that 60-day window, I think we had this posted the last meeting, so technically we could say it's already, we've got a big jump ahead. But even if we count it as, 72 hours ago, whenever this was posted, that clock started. If you approve the project tonight, you just won't be able to spend that money until that 60-day window's done. But then you'll be able to free to do it. Another thing that may be at play here too is that you, as an EDC, you're not bound to the same purchasing rules that the city is. And so you have a lot more freedom to do that, but it's kind of tempered by that 60-day window, because for every expenditure, the citizens can petition and reject your proposed project. But you don't have to use the same, purchasing rules that the city does. So what that means for something like this, if you get a bid in, or there's a project that comes in and you have a local vendor that is, above board and can do it, you're allowed to use funds for that local vendor or whatever, project you get. You're allowed to do that. Unlike the city, where depending on how something comes in, if they want to spend anything over $50,000, then they're required by law to go out for a bidding process for that. There's construction-related issues, and there's other things that have to happen too, but you don't have to do that. And so, this could be an example of how a city and an EDC work together to get a project done, and kind of use some of those purchasing freedoms you have to get part of a project finished, without slowing the city down or working together with the city to get something done. So, I hope that answers what you're looking for.
Absolutely. And to give context on this vendor, they are also the vendor who I found out after we had kind of engaged in getting proposals. They're installing the generator for Access Health as well. And so they've gone through their vetting process as well. We had a few other vendors that did come out and look at the project. One guy was about $200,000, just being real frank with you, and didn't seem to kind of have the nuts and bolts of understanding of what he was doing. So,
Directed your tower.
yep. And so, again, this was the most reasonable vendor. And again, their reputation precedes itself.
It's a great generator,
Mm-hmm.
just saying. That's why people had internet. If they had a generator, because that generator, through all the outages, held that internet property.
And for clarification, this is a generator that would be for City Hall, so we could use it as an emergency.
It would
Facility
power
for-
this
for-
entire building, City Hall and Convention Center.
Okay, so we could use
So
it.
governmental operations could
Would it be-
continue.
Would it be used like as a place for people that, if there
Yes.
was flooding, they
Yep.
could come here, so it would be
I think
taken
the
care of.
original idea was like 2 years ago, we needed a warming station.
Yeah.
Would have been nice.
Warming station, or just some of the people that flooded during Harvey that needed a
Correct,
place to
previous
go.
to that, Harvey, yeah.
Correct.
And
Just-
this is the style that would automatically kick on, automatically kick on after a power outage within, 2 minutes or something?
Yes.
Busted at 30 seconds.
Yes.
Generac is a good company.
Yeah.
One thing I forgot to add too is how we're structuring this is that there's a lot of different ways to do a project, and especially this type of purchase. You could do it several different ways, but I think the one way, because part of it's going to council, I think the cleaner way to do it, I mentioned before, there's a type of project you can do. It's kind of a junk drawer project. The only, again, to me, it's more of a public information or just a transparency related item. But how that project's created is you will do what you did. You have the public hearing, you approve the project, but then council then approves a resolution twice approving the project. So that's, again, it's a double layer on that involves the council. Some types of projects don't even require that. You approve it here, and then, council knows about it, but it doesn't require their approval. This one, though, was 2 resolutions that the council will read, and they have to approve it to make it final. And so I think, but again, because council's a part of the other part of this project, and that seems like that's the best fit for structure this project. So if you do that, then the main thing, and you approve the project, and what the council's gonna read is a resolution that says that you can do this, you can have, if you, as an EDC board, you approve the expenditure. The thing is, you have to find that in some way whatsoever, that it promotes or expands local business. And so, I think that for any of those issues, you could find that it does that. Having a location that's up and running in the city during a disaster, that will promote and expand business, especially in those disaster times.
Okay. Any other discussion? With that, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the purchase of a backup generator for the Convention Center and City Hall.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Agenda item number 7, discussion of possible action regarding the purchase of a podium with a microphone, budget line item number 4000-621 sound system. Again, you have in your packet this as well. There's been a need for our meetings, and if y'all are not aware, historically, the EDC pays for the live streaming of our meetings for both us as well as the city. I don't know if the courts department utilize that. There's been a need where we have public comments and things like that, the ability to capture that audio. And so what has been proposed is we purchase a podium that could be used. We already have a microphone, so it actually will not be with a microphone. That would be able to be wheeled out and ask people for public comments and things like that to come up to that podium. That way it could be heard by the audience as well as captured on the live stream and recorded for historical records. And this is the podium that was recommended by Mayan Technologies, our vendor on the live stream. You know, it's definitely not the Cadillac, but it's pretty decent looking, aesthetically blends in fairly well with the aesthetics of the room. Any questions, comments? With that, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion that we purchase the podium.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving on to agenda item number 8. Discussion of possible action regarding approval of bookkeeping services for the fiscal year 2022 to 2023. Budget line item number 4000-203, professional services. As y'all are aware, board, we've transitioned, or we are in the process of transitioning away from the city maintaining our books, invoicing, writing checks, and all that kind of stuff. With that, it adds a layer of Ms. Casto is going to be doing a whole lot more. While we don't do a ton of financial stuff, 20 or so transactions a month, I feel it's in our best interest to have an outside entity who handles that for us, processes checks, frees Ms. Casto up from that responsibility because there is somewhat of a conflict of interest that she is the only employee we have and she'd be writing her own checks and that kind of stuff. And I don't want to put her in that position of anyone questioning her integrity related to that. Spoke with a couple of our local bookkeeping organizations, and none of them had the capacity to take on additional clients. Both recommended Gunderson unanimously, and so we had a Zoom call with them and went through kind of the what we as a body do on a monthly basis and what they could provide for us. One of the things that it's in your packet this time, but you notice we're about 2 months behind in seeing our financials year to date. Unfortunately, due to the nature of when we meet, which is the first Thursday of the month, our statement dates are the first through the last day of the month. So we will potentially always be 30-ish days behind of being able to see our true picture, unless there's enough days in between where they can get us up to date. But minimally, we'll always be within that window. So we're pretty close to up to date. And then we should know what we just approved the previous month. So we should always have a clear picture of what our expenditures are, profit and loss. Again, they would handle our payroll. They would handle any of our quarterly, our professional contracts, any of that stuff that would be necessary. Ms. Casto would be responsible for making deposits. There's some discussion on whether or not in the future the city would be, how they're going to handle the deposits of tax to us. We'll get that figured out. And then any invoices they come in, Ms. Casto would be sending to Gunderson. They would archive them, create the checks. The contract they've presented to us would be $375 a month, $150 setup fee, and then we would have whatever postage is incurred at a direct cost, approvable cost every month, and that would be for them to mail the checks to us instead of them driving down from Waller. So with that, I will take any questions you may have. Any questions at all?
Is this contract, so there'll be a monthly call with this bookkeeper to review the
Correct.
financials?
Correct. And she would be available if we wanted her to come on our, board calls. She prefers not to do this. She does handle some other municipalities and she understands how. But, to be real frank with you, I was surprised when I really broke down our financials. There's no reason why we're not caught up every single month. I mean, I'm just gonna be real frank with you. And she even said there's possibility she could have us, if we're like on the 3rd, she could still have us the P&L for the previous month available for that meeting. That would not make it to our packet deadline where we like to have it in for the previous packet, but we really just don't do the number of transactions that makes sense that we're not having all this information up to date at the time we meet. So, we'd have a clear picture of where we're at. It would be a transition to QuickBooks, so your reports are gonna look different than what they look here. But we'd have the same chart of accounts and all that stuff. Any other questions?
Did it say where, if we go over 100 transactions, how much our rate will go up?
It did not, but in the last historical year, we've not gone over 20 transactions a single month.
Okay.
So I did look at the last 12 months' worth of statements, and we never went over 12, even at the busiest month. So we're well under that criteria. I think she did say a fee, but I honestly don't remember what she said in passing on the call.
No, if we're nowhere close, then.
Yeah, we're,
No.
The
For
worst
whatever
month-
reason we get to the point where we're about to threshold that we can have a conversation.
we would obviously,
Yeah.
have a conversation with her, and I would hope that if
Hopefully
it's,
she would give us a heads up.
I would hope that if we're at 101 and we've been doing nothing but 20 the previous
Yeah.
month, she would just go, you know what, let's go. But I can't promise that. All right, any other questions? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve bookkeeping services.
Second,
A second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Agenda item number 9, BDC Coordinators Report.
Mr. President, members of the board, in your packet, you should have a copy of our report as well as, I hope, a copy of our newsletter. Yes. Was that the newsletter?
It's in there.
Okay, thank you. As reflected in the report, most of this month has been oriented, kind of fast pacing a project that hopefully will go into executive session to discuss. And when we go into executive session, I'll be glad to discuss that project. Just an overview, the state and our allies are getting lots of leads, which is reflection economy, is growing. Many of the projects you'll see in there again, we didn't meet the specs, for a lot of reasons. We didn't have a building that had the specific requirements with the number of locks, the loading docks, or the ceiling heights, or the size, or the square footage. As I mentioned, I think in last night's session, that many of the requests will come in with a specific must comply with zoning, with the zoning requirement. I mean, obviously, that kind of flushes us. If we've got a site that meets that, I frequently will put that in, and try to jawbone through it and hope that, even though they ask for the zoning, we can jawbone around that. But I'm happy to answer any questions. You can see by the report, we've been pretty busy with reviewing potential projects and really busy with a project that we want to present to you this evening in the executive session. I'll be happy to address any questions or comments that you might have.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Being none?
None. All right, agenda item number 10, President's Report. I'll be brief so we have plenty of time to handle the executive session, but wanted to make y'all aware that we are steadily in the process of transitioning financials away from the city. We have met persistent roadblocks there. So I hope by the end of this month, we have everything totally transitioned that needs to be transitioned. Ms. Aguilar and I had a discussion last night related to some invoices that we've been receiving. And I'm having some conversations with some vendors about how we're going to handle certain things moving forward. Part of that will be decided in our budget process when we workshop that. But to let y'all know, we're moving forward as expeditiously as possible to analyze where we're truly at on a lot of things. Any pointed questions beyond that? All right, hearing none. Agenda item number 11. Brookshire Economic Development Corporation may convene an executive session under section 551.087 of the Government Code to discuss commercial or financial information that the corporation has received from the business prospect that the corporation seeks to locate, stay, or expand in or near the city of Brookshire, with which the corporation is conducting economic development negotiations, or B, discuss the offer of financial or other incentive to a business prospect that the corporation seeks to have locate, stay, or expand in or near the city of Brookshire. Give Ms. Casto a moment to leave the room.
Mr. President, please, I would welcome Ms. Castro's presence.
That's
in this
totally-
meeting with you. She's been very helpful in this project.
That's your call.
I think, that would be echoed by,
That's your call then.
client.
Absolutely. If that's,
I mean, you all decide who stays and